But today we are going to talk about 5 different protocols, 5 different health protocols that you may implement and that may assist you along the path of health, fitness, and longevity. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, where armor is forged through mental, spiritual, and physical preparation. Welcome to First Responder Fitness with Carl Wimmer, my friends. It is such a blessing, such a wonderful opportunity to be with you again this week. Before we start off, I would just like to encourage you once again to make sure that you subscribe to this channel, that you hit the thumbs up button, that you comment for the algorithm, and that you share this with your friends, your family in the first responder community, those who are in law enforcement, those who are in the firefighting community. Heck, I would encourage you to share this with anyone who is focused or concerned or really intent on improving their fitness, their health, their longevity. We provide good, high quality, provable information week in and week out. Some of the best data that you can get regarding fitness, health, mental health, spiritual health is right here at First Responder Fitness. We do a very, very thorough job of going through the data, making sure that only the highest quality information is provided. And if we don't know something, we will say we don't know. In fact, we're going to be getting into some of that today as we delve into the topic of the week. So excited to bring you this information because we get a lot of questions about it. There is a lot of information on the internet right now regarding so many different life hacks, fitness hacks. How do we biohack? We're into biohacking. It's the new trend. It's a topic that is loaded with false information and garbage, and yet there is still a lot of high quality information or nuggets to be found in the biohacking community. But for the most part, by and large, the biohacking community is filled with quacks and people who are trying to make a quick buck, trying to set you up to buy their product, to subscribe to their stuff, to buy their programs, and simply they're selling stuff that doesn't work. So we want to be able to decipher and peel back the layers here. Of course, that big word, we want to avoid being ultra-crepidarians. What is an ultra-crepidarian? That is someone who talks about a subject for which they really shouldn't be discussing. It's someone who talks about subjects that are far beyond their level of education, far beyond their experience, and far beyond really any rational person's ability to argue logically for the topic they're discussing. And we want to avoid doing that really at almost all costs. Today, we are going to get into some topics that I know a lot about and some that I know less about. However, I oftentimes default to my go-to research scientists, my go-to people, just to back up the information and back up the data that I already know, either through personal experience myself or through the experience of people who I know. I want to avoid anecdotal evidence. We want to avoid laying too much credibility on anecdotes, because we all know that placebo effect and personal bias can affect what we experience. So we want to be careful to allow the data to speak for itself. But today we are going to talk about 5 different protocols, 5 different health protocols that you may implement and that may assist you along the path of health, fitness, and longevity. Some of them are far more scientifically researched, far more proven, and the data shows far, far and away more benefit than negative. Others are largely unproven, but they're all the rage. And so I may trample on some of your sacred cows today as we enter into this topic. It is not my intention to trample on a sacred cow. Perhaps you have a protocol or a biohack that you absolutely love, and I would just encourage you, keep doing it. Keep doing it. But keep an open mind. Don't just do something because your favorite fitness influencer tells you it's a good idea. Don't just do something because your favorite CrossFit man or woman does this and swears by it. That does not mean it's scientifically effective, scientifically proven. It does not mean that there have been any randomized controlled trial studies that show what you're doing is effective. And that's the gold standard, these RCTs, the randomized controlled trial studies, where they research it, they study it, and they come to some solid conclusions. That is where we want to go. We want to move our thinking and our mindset from emotion to logic. So keep that in mind as we go into these 5 so-called biohacks, or these 5 protocols that may or may not have significant impact on your long-term health. First and foremost, let me lay out this disclaimer. Recently, I have been a big advocate, as you know, of the potential appointment of Robert Kennedy to the Department of Health and Human Services at the federal level. Super excited because the United States is the most unhealthy, most obese nation in the entire world. Something has to change. Something has to change, and I'm super excited about the potentiality of change coming right from the top of our government levels down to the people. We are killing ourselves through unhealthy foods, unhealthy behaviors, and that's just period. We are. But I've seen a lot of people, in large part, health influencer mothers on social media, and God bless them, love you, but I see them focusing heavily on the things that really don't matter a lot. Okay, don't matter a lot. And trust me, I have personal experience on this. So what am I saying? They focus on the fact that RFK is going to do away with glyphosates, or he's going to outlaw red 40 or yellow dyes and this and that. And I do have experience with this. My youngest son was insane as a child, as a young toddler, 2 years old, just uncontrollable. And we were really kind of getting at our wits' end, trying to figure out what the heck was wrong with him. And this is a little bit prior to me caring a lot about nutrition. I was certainly in the height of my powerlifting career, and I absolutely got my protein in, but I really didn't care where the extra calories came from. And we almost always had in our pantry a great big bucket of red vines. I don't like red vines. I'm a Twizzler guy. My family is completely divided on this. Twizzler versus red vine. I'm totally Twizzler over red vine. I'm neither these days. I don't like I prefer not to eat a whole lot of candy. I do like candy, but I prefer not to eat it. But either way, when it comes down to the red vine versus Twizzler, our family is divided 50-50. Either way, we almost always had one of those clear buckets of red vines, and my youngest son loved them. And we started researching what could cause his insanity, and red 40, the dye, came up as a significant cause of rebellion and resistance and anger and outrage and just things that we were seeing in our youngest son. So we started cutting out the red 40, just grasping at straws. And it did seem to have a significant effect. Now, that's anecdotal. Maybe it's because we started cutting out more sugar. Maybe it's because a lot of things that have red 40 in it are also high in sugar. And so was it the red 40 dye, or was it the fact that we were feeding him too much sugar and poisoning him through sugar and simple sugars and things like that? I don't know. But it did seem to have an effect. And I tend to think that the red 40 did have an effect on him, that he was sensitive to it. But I can't prove that. But I'm seeing a lot of people, oh, yes, we're going to ban red 40. And sadly, a lot of the people who are saying this, as you just observe them or look at their social media pages, they're obese. They're obese. They're on the fast track to type 2 diabetes. They are probably already insulin resistant. Their blood pressure is probably already a little bit elevated. And they don't exercise. And so I sit here and think, you're thinking that banning red dyes, which you could cut out of your family's diet right now anyway, if you just took personal responsibility. You think that that's going to be the panacea that's going to save the world, when in reality, you're jumping over $100 bills to pick up shekels, fractions of shekels, mites, widow mites, like half a penny, when the $100 bill is getting to the gym and lifting weights and doing cardiovascular exercise. Nothing you do is more effective at improving your overall health or the overall health of your family. Nothing is more effective than exercise. I'm sorry. All of your special red apple cider vinegar and your curcumin and all of your special concoctions that you make and shake up in a bottle and drink to prevent colds and flus. None of your getting rid of the gluten, none of your gluten-free, sugar-free, red 40 free, none of that comes close to the benefits that exercise would give you. Period. End of sentence. If you disagree, in all humility, you're wrong. You are scientifically, you are medically, you are physically, you are absolutely objectively wrong. Now, I'm not saying that there's not wiggle room there, that you shouldn't get rid of the sugar, the dyes, and the gluten, or whatever else you think you need to get rid of. But if you're doing those things but not exercising, if you're doing those things but not lifting weights and focusing on cardiovascular exercise, you are literally, like figuratively, I should say, you are spitting into the wind and hoping it doesn't get you. You're doing very, very minimal. But see, that's the way our society is. Our society will almost do anything to get out of exercise. They'll take a pill. They'll take an injection. They will get rid of the peripheral foods that they think are poisoning them, which might be actually, but they think are poisoning them. They'll do all these things to improve their health, but they won't go buy a gym membership or hire a personal trainer. The one thing that would influence and affect their life more than any of the other stuff. Well, let me get off my soapbox. It's a soapbox because I see it. People do anything to get out of exercise. And guess what? Exercise is by far the best medicine you could give yourself. It is by far the number one thing you can do to improve your health and your longevity. If you're not starting there, you're not really starting. You're just dancing around the starting line. Stop dancing around the starting line and take off in the race of life. Start exercising. Start doing your weightlifting. All right, enough said. So what are these 5 therapies, these 5 habits that people do, these 5 biohacks that people are doing that are all the rage? And what's the truth behind them? The first one I want to look at, and this one's going to really, it's going to stick somebody in the side. I know it, but here we go. Cold therapy, cold plunges, cold water immersion, cryotherapy, cold exposure. It's all the rage. If you are following any of the online influencers, fitness influencers, if you're following a lot of CrossFit influencers, man, they are all telling you cold exposure is king. Cold exposure is the best. And you know what? Cold exposure has some benefits. Absolutely has some benefits. What do the studies show? Well, perhaps the greatest benefit that cold exposure has is that after a workout, it does seem to help with DOMS, DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. You know that soreness you get after you work out? It does seem to help in that area. It does seem to help affect that. It reduces inflammation. And it does release endorphins into the brain. And so a lot of people that do it, they just love the way they feel when they're out of it. They don't necessarily love the feel of getting into this freezing cold ice bath, but when they get out, it feels good. It feels good. My daughter, who is a brilliant track athlete and went to college, paid for her 4-year degree because she was so fast and such a brilliant sprinter. And I was her coach for most of that time. We did ice baths, especially on her lower legs. She had a lot of lower leg issues, and ice immersion seemed to help. And so if you love your ice baths, if you love your cold exposure, I would never be one to tell you not to do it. But keep in mind that it is not the cure-all that you're seeing online. First of all, the results or the studies, the randomized controlled studies, really do not back up all of the claims of cold therapy. It just doesn't, okay? That if you start doing it, you're going to burn lots of fat. You're going to reduce the size of your belly. It turns the white fat into brown adipose fat and it starts burning fat. Okay, all of that is unproven. The scientific research on it is at best middle of the road there. Maybe some studies show some improvement there. Some studies show no, there's just simply no evidence to that at all. Additionally, if you are trying to build muscle, hypertrophy, trying to build up your muscles, you don't necessarily want to get rid of DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. You don't necessarily want to get rid of the inflammation, because it is the inflammation response, among other things, of course, that trigger your body's mechanisms to build stronger muscles, to start laying down more muscle fibers, and to enlarge the muscle fibers that you have. If you always get rid of the inflammation, so if you are lifting weights and you're lifting hard and then you get into a cold bath, one thing that the studies have almost universally shown is that it prevents muscle growth. It reduces muscle growth. So be cautious be judicious in your cold exposure therapy. Additionally, some of the other side benefits or additional benefits of cold exposure, besides the reduced muscle soreness and inflammation, which could be a negative depending on what your goals are. If you don't care about building muscle, let's say you are a marathon runner. Let's say you are someone who needs to be very strong, but light. And so hypertrophy is not something that you're super concerned about. Maybe a road bike racer. Maybe the benefits of cold exposure are better for you than someone who is bodybuilding, trying to build up muscle mass, muscle size. But another one of the benefits is the fact that it boosts your mood and your mental resilience. Those cannot be overstated. If you love cold exposure and you love the way you feel and it makes your life better, then 2 thumbs up. Keep doing it. Absolutely keep doing it. Because you know what? It's your life. And you need to live and make decisions that are best for you. Finally, there is some mixed results, mixed evidence that it can potentially boost your immune system temporarily, that it can temporarily increase white blood cell count. It can do some things as far as immunotherapy, immune health. But again, those results are mixed. Some people will see that benefit, some people will not. So again, the benefits of cold exposure are mixed at best. If you love it, keep doing it. But you need to really be judicious here. You want to make sure that you don't overuse it, because it can increase stress hormone release, stress hormones in your body. The potential adverse effects, of course, hypothermia. You want to be careful not to overdo it. So that's cold exposure. The next one is one that I have a tremendous amount of experience with, one that I feel like I benefited from, but also saw negatives to it, and one that has almost a cult-like following, and that is intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting. There was a period of time where a few years ago, where I wanted to lose fat. I wanted to lose weight, but I hated dieting. I hated the idea of every single day being in a calorie deficit. And we've talked about that before, but the bottom line is, if you want to lose fat, you want to lose body fat, you must be in a calorie deficit. That is absolute 100% scientific proven fact. If you are in a calorie deficit, you will lose fat. No matter what your thyroid is doing, no matter what your pituitary is doing, no matter what anything else in your body is doing, you cannot escape the laws, the first and second law of thermodynamics. If you live in this universe, you cannot escape these immutable laws. And basically, the laws of thermodynamics control your ability to gain and lose fat. Fat, calories, it's just energy. Energy in. You need to burn that energy, or it's going to be stored as energy, adipose tissue, fat. Calories in, calories out, always works, always, for everyone, every time. If you disagree with that statement, again, you're not correct. You're wrong. There are, of course, medical things that affect everybody. For instance, my body likes to be fat. It likes to be fat. And I have a harder time in a calorie deficit than someone can be in a calorie deficit, lose fat, and they're perfect. They're fine. They don't get that intense hunger that you may get. And maybe it is. Indeed, it is genetic. You are predisposed to hold on to fat versus someone who is predisposed to be skinny. There are predispositions and there are genetic markers, and there are things such diseases, things that issues with your pituitary and your glands and your brain. There are things that make it harder. I'm not denying that. That is truth. Absolute 100% truth. But the bottom line is, if you're in a calorie deficit, you will lose fat. And because I am predisposed to be fat, I didn't like the idea of being in a calorie deficit every day of my life in order to lose fat. And so I read and learned about this thing called the every other day diet. And immediately it appealed to me. It's like, that's something I could do. And it was very simple. I ate whatever I wanted on one day, and the next day I didn't eat. That's it. I just drank water, whatever. Drank black coffee. I took in no calories on one day. The next day I ate whatever I wanted. And it worked for me. I lost weight. I lost fat. And in fact, I felt good. I felt good. I felt as if I had more energy on the days I fasted. I really did. On the days that I fasted and worked out, I really felt like I had more energy. Now, that's me. That's anecdotal. That's for me on a personal level. There's multiple ways to do intermittent fasting. There's the 16-8 window where you fast for 16 hours and you feed within an 8-hour window. There is the 18-6 window. Different protocols for different people. And there are some benefits to intermittent fasting. There absolutely are. One of the biggest benefits is that it's easier to get into a calorie deficit. And that helps you lose body fat. And by losing body fat, it improves your insulin sensitivity. It helps fight against diabetes. It helps fight against the metabolic disease. Anything you do that helps you lose fat will help prevent diabetes and metabolic disease. So it did help, and it does help in those areas. There are some mixed results. Some people say, oh, it's the greatest thing in the world. It's going to increase your longevity. It's going to prevent chronic diseases. It's going to help with your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your inflammation. Yeah, scientific studies, randomized controlled studies are mixed on that. There's some evidence that it may or may not help. But intermittent fasting has shown to help with heart health. Why? I don't believe it's because of how you eat. It's because, again, you're in a calorie deficit and you're losing fat. And the loss of fat changes your metabolic health, period. So the pros and cons of intermittent fasting. The pros definitely supports weight loss and metabolic health. Usually they're pretty easy to follow protocols. They can reduce inflammation and support cardiovascular health. But the cons are almost too much for me. And here's the cons. You lose muscle mass. You do. It is very difficult to get the needed amount of protein for protein muscle synthesis to be a constant with you. If you are wanting to build muscle and muscle strength, your body needs a steady flow, a steady pool of protein. I've already talked to you. There's an episode, you can go back and listen to it, that talks about the protein protocols. But you need a high amount of protein to build muscle. And it is hard to get that much protein if you are fasting most of the time. And it's certainly difficult for your body to absorb the protein in such a short window. So I think the biggest negative by far to intermittent fasting, and again, I did it for a long time, the biggest negative to intermittent fasting is if you want to build muscle, if you don't want to lose muscle, if you don't want your body to catabolize itself and eat the muscle, intermittent fasting is probably not for you. You need to get on a diet that is lower in calories, that is high in protein. And again, I have episodes that talk about those things. Intermittent fasting can cause you to binge eat. One of the selling points for the every other day diet, I remember watching a video, was a woman going, oh, I want some ice cream. Oh, I want some pie. I want some Twix. I want some this. I can eat whatever I want on the days I eat. And she ate like garbage. And then the next day she didn't eat anything. Okay, fine. You're still probably in a calorie deficit, but what are you doing to your body? Not a good idea. This binge, binge not eating, it may not be suitable for all people. And it's not good if the days that you eat, you're eating like crap. You're eating garbage. The long-term effects of intermittent fasting, we don't know. We still don't know. Hasn't been studied in a randomized controlled trial study. So we really don't know. Would I discourage you from doing intermittent fasting? No, because I did it and it worked for me in helping me to lose body fat. But understand the negatives, especially the negatives when it comes to muscle building, is too much for me. And as you get older, if you are 40 years old or older, you need to hang on to every ounce of muscle you possibly can leading into your older age, because one of the leading causes of death for old people is just the fact that sarcopenia hits, the loss of muscle mass, and they can't move. They do not have enough muscle mass to protect them from falls or trips or whatever the case may be. They fall down, they break, their bones are brittle. You should, in my opinion, not scientifically proven, I could be wrong, but in my opinion, if you are over 40, especially if you're over 50, you should not do intermittent fasting. You shouldn't. Occasionally fast, sure. For spiritual reasons, for religious reasons, or for the health reasons. Go ahead and fast on occasion. But for the most part, you need to be filling your body full of good nutrient foods and protein. The third protocol that I'm a big fan of and that I think has a lot of benefits, and really I can't think of any negative benefits other than the time consumption, is mindful meditation. Mindful meditation, especially for the first responder community, is so important. Mental health is critical for our law enforcement community and our firefighter community, and it's critical for everybody. Mindful meditation, there is strong evidence that it reduces stress, anxiety, and depression. There are many randomized controlled studies that show significant improvements in well-being through mindful meditation, just taking some time out of your busy day, focusing on your breath, focusing on positivity. There's a lot of different protocols for meditation. I am not big on the meditations that are more like worshiping the universe and those types of things. That's me on a personal level and on a religious level. But as far as the controlling your breathing, focusing on relaxing your body, focusing on breathing in positivity and breathing out negativity. Some evidence suggests that this type of mindful meditation improves cognitive performance. It improves your attention, which we all know that you need if when you are responding to a traffic accident, if you're responding to a domestic, if you're responding to whatever firefighters and police officers respond to, your attention span is critical. And mindful meditation, which doesn't need to take a long time, you can do it right there in your patrol vehicle, right there in your firehouse. Go to your room and just spend some time breathing and meditating. It has strong effects on reducing stress, anxiety, and depression. It's evidence-based for reducing those three. It improves your focus, mental clarity, and there's no physical risk. It's suitable for everybody. I mean, you can do mindful meditation for anyone, no matter what your age. Some of the cons, of course, it can take a long time to get results, but the more you do it, the more you'll feel it and the more results you'll have. It requires commitment and dedication. You got to be consistent with it. Like anything in life, if you want to be good at it, you got to be consistent. And not everyone responds equally. One of the things, especially when it comes to controlling your breathing, mindful meditation, and I've experienced this several times because I take my own blood pressure. I go to the doctor for blood pressure. In fact, the last time I went to give blood at the Red Cross, I sat down, and of course they check your blood, they check the hemoglobin and the hematocrit, and then they check your blood pressure. And believe it or not, your blood pressure needs to be low enough. It can't be super high or they can't take your blood. And it can't be super low. Or like hypertension, they can't take your blood if it's too high. Hypotension, they can't take your blood if it's too low. Well, I was sitting there waiting for them to come take my blood pressure, and I actually had some time. So I did some breathing exercises that Colonel David Grossman from the Killology Institute, who wrote the book On Killing, who wrote the book On Combat, definitely a hero of mine, one of the best public speakers I have ever seen live ever. He teaches this breathing exercise for law enforcement officers to bring your heart rate down and to control your sympathetic nervous system in a combat situation. And I've heard it called box breathing. But basically it's this: you breathe in through the nose deep for 4 seconds, you hold it for 4 seconds, you let it out through the mouth for 4 seconds, and then you hold after you've exhaled for 4 seconds, and then that's one full breath. And you do that over and over and over. Well, I was doing that before they came to take my blood pressure, and I already have super good low blood pressure for the most part. And I'll explain as we move along here one of the reasons that's the case. But when she came and took my blood pressure, it was so low, they kicked me out. They rejected me. They wouldn't take my blood because they said, your blood pressure is too low. You can't give blood. You'll have to come back. And they put a stop on me from giving blood for a small period of time. So next time I will not be doing that. I will just sit down. Maybe I'll do a few jumping jacks before they take my blood pressure next time I go give blood. But mindful meditation and breathing exercises are powerful tools that you can use to reduce stress, depression, and to just center yourself. I'm big on that. So what's number 4? Number 4 is the use of red light therapy. It's called photobiomodulation. Photobiomodulation or red light therapy. This is one for which I have very little experience, but it is one that I am vastly interested in, one that I am going to experiment with, one that I want to try, because the studies keep coming back showing a lot of positive results, especially when it comes to pain relief and inflammation. There have been several randomized controlled trial studies that show pain relief and inflammation relief in the musculoskeletal body, in the musculoskeletal portion of your body, your muscles and maybe your joints, joint mobility. And I've got some knee issues from the years of powerlifting. I've got some lower back issues from my years of powerlifting. I fractured my spine, for crying out loud. So I do have some issues there. I have some joint issues because I beat myself up and I am getting older. So I am super interested in trying red light therapy for myself. When I do start doing that, I will report the results back to you. One of the biggest benefits to red light therapy, which may or may not matter to you, but is skin rejuvenation. It tends to produce collagen synthesis and make your skin look younger and reduce wrinkles. I think that's important. Looking good. It may be vanity, but looking good. It's been shown to help that. I have seen some studies show that it has mixed but mostly positive results for hair loss. I shave my head because I'm tired of balding in the front and in the back. And so I shave my head because I'm tired of that. If I could grow beautiful long locks of hair, maybe I'd go back to having hair. But red light therapy has a lot of pros, has some negatives. And the biggest negative is that it just has not been conclusively studied or conclusively proven in all areas at all. There's a lot of hype, and there is a lot of overstating the benefits of red light therapy. We need to just pull the reins back a little bit. It's showing more so than cold therapy, more so than some of these other biohacking modalities. It's showing a lot of positivity, a lot of potentiality, but potential is not fulfilled. It's hopeful. So we need to be cautious, but I would love to hear your results. What are your results with red light therapy? Have you used it yet? Do you use it? What are you seeing? I would love to hear. So comment, let me know, because this is one that I have very little experience in, but I would like to gain more experience. It's non-invasive, minimal side effects. As far as most of the studies show, very minimal side effects. In fact, one of the positive effects is that, especially during the winter months when sunlight is lower, it's been shown to really reduce SAD, the seasonal depression. It's effective for pain relief, skin rejuvenation. Some studies have shown it's good for hair growth, and it promotes tissue healing. So those are all benefits. One of the major negatives is how expensive it is. I don't think that the benefits are worth the expense unless you have a place, maybe at a gym or at a location that you can do it for a few bucks. But to buy your own red light therapy unit, your own booth, can be very cost prohibitive. The effectiveness also varies on individuals. That's one of the problems with studying it. One of the problems with looking at randomized controlled trials is that it seems to be individual based. Some people respond very well to it, others do not. And so again, there's more studies being done because it is an exciting area, but just make sure you keep a open mind and reasonable thought process when it comes to this. And there are very, very limited long-term studies. We just don't have long-term study application. So we just don't know whether or not it's going to be something that lasts. Is photobiomodulation something that is going to last and be proven over time? or is it going to be a flash in the pan? Something tells me it's going to last, because we don't see this amount of studies with this amount of benefits and this amount of experts who seem to be quite bullish on it. And it seems like, again, I don't want to pick on your sacred cow, but it seems like the studies that keep disproving all of the hyperbole about cold therapy, they keep going in this trajectory, whilst the red light therapy is going in this trajectory. It's like they're passing each other as more and more studies are done and conducted on each one of these modalities. Again, you be you. You go do what you feel you need to do. It appears that we need to break this particular episode up into two. Time is getting short, and I do not want to short change the fifth protocol. I'll give you a little bit of a hint, but we're going to do an entire episode. The next episode is going to be on this particular protocol, because it is, in fact, it is the most proven biohack, the most proven therapy. It's the most studied for the longest period of time through the most randomized controlled trial studies of any of the ones I've mentioned up to this point. And it is the use of sauna. The use of dry sauna versus infrared sauna. We will discuss both. I have intimate, personal data that I will share about myself, but I will also share the studies and the research that has shown that sauna use, above and beyond all of the other aforementioned therapies, is a therapy and a habit that you can get into that produces a wide range of health benefits across a wide spectrum of people. And it's physical benefits, mental benefits, and we'll get into it at another date. For now, I'd love to hear your feedback. Have you used any of these? Have you done intermittent fasting? Have you used photobiomodulation? Have you used mindful meditation? What are your results with those things? What about cold therapy? I know I seem to be a little bit down on cold therapy, but that's only because the research continues to show that what was overhype is in fact overhype. There's a lot of benefits to cold therapy, but don't believe all the hype. If you like it, if it works for you, keep doing it. But it does seem that we have been sold something that is a little bit overhyped, oversold. But what are your experiences with it? I would love to hear. If you disagree with me, I'd love to hear your personal experience with it. So comment below, comment for the algorithm. Next time we'll get into sauna, both dry sauna, infrared sauna. Can't wait for that. Can't wait to be back. By the time that episode hits, Thanksgiving will have come and gone. I wish your family an amazing Thanksgiving. We have so much to be grateful for in this country, in this world. I hope you take time out to give thanks and to be grateful for what you have in your life, for the people around you, for everything that we have. You have a lot to be grateful for. Until then, be good to yourself, be good to others, and as always, stay safe, my friends.